Welcome. We are so glad you could join us today. I'm going to run through a couple things and then I'll introduce our guest speaker. So, land acknowledgement. In Minnesota, we're standing on the rightful lands of four different Dakota nations and several other indigenous tribes. We recognize that the U.S. did not uphold its end of the land treaties, and it's because of the current displacement of indigenous people that allows the state of Minnesota and the University of Minnesota to exist today. Affirmation of commitment. At the Institute of Community Integration, we affirm our commitment to address systemic, racist, ableist, and all other inequity and forms of oppression to ensure inclusive communities. All right. And then next, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Johnathan Lingus. He is here from the University of St. Louis, Missouri, and he's going to talk with us this evening about person-centered planning. Johnathan, take it
Awesome.
away.
Okay, let me share my slideshow. Everybody can hopefully see that. Here we go. Hi, everybody. Once again, my name is Johnathan Lidgus. I am the director of the Office of Inclusive Postsecondary Education. And tonight, I'm going to talk about charting the life course and person-centered planning and how we use charting the life course in our person-centered planning tools. So, or in our person-centered planning with our students. So the agenda of what we're going to go through tonight is what our office is all about. So who we are and what we do. Then I'll talk a little bit about, well, a little bit. I'm going to talk a lot about person-centered planning and go over in detail how we use charting the life course to make that happen for our students and families. And then the third point we're going to discuss is really what our next steps are in person-centered planning and using charting the life course because as one of our partners in our TIPSID grant and our continuing partner for TIPSID and the growth of our students, the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and their Institute for Human Development and Inclusion, they really developed Charting the Life course for a wide variety, which you'll see of uses, which you'll see through this. So a little bit about us. So in 2013, really 2012, we at the University of Missouri St. Louis got a tiny little grant from three different disability boards in the St. Louis region. And those helped us develop a post-secondary education program for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. That program came to be the Succeed program. Over the last decade or more, we have grown significantly through support from our partners, support from federal grants, and with those, we have grown from just the Succeed program, which is our 2-year chancellor certificate, to an office that supports students in three separate programs and work with students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So when you think about IPSI programs or inclusive post-secondary programs, Succeed, the one we started with, is our comprehensive transition program. It is the one that we are recognized for our grant and the one that is solely for students with intellectual disability. So we started out with about 13 students back in 2013, our first academic year. And now we average about, in two cohorts, about 40 students supported through the Succeed program who graduate in the College of Education on commencement day with their chancellor's certificate. As we grew, we recognize that 2 years, we're expecting students with intellectual disability to slam college in 2 years, which is living on campus, getting a job, working through academic stress, all that, and like really transitioning in and doing that all in 2 years when traditional students at the university can take up to 6 years. And really, when we started, the best practice was having a 4 semester program. So we developed the Succeed Plus program, and that is a pathway for students who graduate the Succeed program to continue on for 1 or 2 additional years, working on their independent living skills, working on their social connections to not only the university, but the community around them. But more importantly, those students in Succeed Plus are working towards industry recognized credentials. So they graduate with a certificate from the university and succeed, and then they go on to industry recognized credentials. And those, there's hundreds of them out there, but those really are range from hospitality certificates to dog grooming, to which, by the way, is quite involved. To there's certificates in uh, culinary and food service. Like, so there's a lot of different industries that give out certificates that lead to gainful employment and the ability for our students to continue growing in their career. And then finally, we launched a program to support students with developmental disabilities earning a degree or an undergraduate certificate at the university. So we're looking at students here that range from anything from traumatic brain injury to ADHD, autism, who we work with one-on-one through coaching, academic support, social support, and in the Link program, we help them attain their academic goals and still support them in their growth in independent living and really connecting back to campus. A lot of the students in the Link program would not necessarily be able to successfully complete a degree just because the additional support that they would need beyond what disability access services would be able to provide them. We're happy that we have a lot of data now with our Link program for students who are graduating. So we have a cohorts that are graduating now because it's our newest program, and it's our program in our office that has grown the most, uh, and that's why we serve around 75 students every academic year, with now the majority of them really coming from that Link program, which is pretty cool. And I will leave time at the end for questions, comments, or concerns about what I'm kind of chatting about today. Okay, so my job in the office is to help our students and our help our staff in the university and support our staff in the university for our students to reach their goals. And the way that we do this for our students and families, set those goals and really set the plan for the student is through person-centered planning. Uh, we use person-centered planning, not because it's fun, but it's really something that helps guide and educate not only the students, so really the student's voice, okay? It's like looking at what the student needs really helps with that self-determination of the student, but it also helps the family understand what those students needs and the instructors and everybody who interacts with that student really is on the same page. And we do this through person-centered planning. We have 4 outcome pillars in the Office of Inclusive Post-Secondary Education, and those are live, learn, work, and play. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about those as we go through each of the tools that we use. But person-centered, we set goals in those using person-centered planning. Person-centered planning also isn't just the best practice, it's really required. One, it's required for TIPSID programs, which uh, is a federal grant that we have received. We are required to do person-centered planning for all of our students in the Succeed program. It is required for CTP programs. And for those who do not know what CTP means, that is Comprehensive Transition Programs. That is a designation, not an accreditation, a designation from the Department of Education that allows that your inclusive program meets certain criteria in academics, housing, uh, like social and like extracurricular activities, that allows those programs to give um, to give financial aid to students who are enrolled in non-credit programs. If you are in higher ed, financial aid, giving a non-credit student or a student that is not degree seeking, financial aid is a no-no, okay? But being a CTP program written into the Higher Education Opportunity Act, we are able to do that. And sorry, and one of the biggest requirements is a robust person-centered planning um, process in that. Really, we have really kind of summing up, uh, in a very technical way, what I think about person-centered planning is really that closed loop system for our students. What we're going to be talking about tonight is a set of documents and tools which are awesome that we use. There's many ways to approach person-centered planning. There's many tools to use in person-centered planning. Charting the Life Course is just one of them, and one of our partners. But and I want to give everybody a good overview of what that looks like. But it's really important that person-centered planning, one is like if you see my slide here, works on discovery, vision, and choice for the student. Really it takes those goals of the student and then moves them to like your inclusive course of study. So how do your goals meet your job goals, your class goals, your independent living goals? And then the implementation, like who's doing what, right? It's like who in the plan is working on these things, who has the job, when we look through that. And then it's not just like a one and done, right? It's a place that is, it's a document that is living and breathing and changeable, and it's something you want to continue working on throughout the student's career and beyond. You want to give them their person-centered plan so that they can continue using it, and give them the tools, and you'll see how we do that. The goal, that sounds really kind of like in my family, what our families when they first come to our program, it sounds very IEP-esque, okay? And it's kind of like a stress point sometimes for our families, like, oh, we're setting goals, and they're like, everybody just gets ready for like, we're going to obtain like 80% of this, and we're going to set percentages, and this is how we're going to do things. And it's not like that at all, and it really shouldn't be. Uh, and we actually, with our previous TIPSA grant, we had um, the last 5 years, worked with one of the largest school districts in the area in training people in life course and person-centered planning, so that transition to college is much smoother and understandable for the families and the student that and their goals. Because sometimes, and you'll see this, and I'm sure many of you have encountered this, students and families, their goals are not exactly aligned, and in anything area. And that's actually really good, okay? Because that's where you really get to what the student needs, how we can support the families, and really move everybody and hold everybody to like what we're doing, and helping everyone grow, including us at the university. Okay, so I have this cute little video uh, with the founder of or the designer of Charting the Life course. Kind of just gives like an overview of what this is and the whole framework. I should have mentioned this earlier. Part of our grant last 5 years, our staff and staffs across the Midwest were trained in these tools as LifeCourse ambassadors. So our job is to really train and advocate for not only the use of this model, but also get feedback on this as well. So let's see if this works. We're just going to keep going because I will go over this and fix that later. Okay, because I am flexible and I know how to move forward. Here we go. So, charting the life course, that's awesome. Dealing with me is great. Okay, so charting the life course is really a whole suite of tools that works with families, students, communities, and organizations. Okay. So it developed out of something in working with people with disabilities, but it goes way beyond that. There, I summed up that entire video for you in 12 seconds. Okay. So what we use in our office, what we use it for is to help students clarify and communicate their needs. Okay. This is something that's really, really important to um, the students and their families. It helps the students advocate for the supports and accomplishing their goals. We talked about that. Most important thing here, helps families set higher expectations for their children. And here's the key, expectations for yourself. Like, this is really something that, or expectations for themselves. A lot of times, having a student with an intellectual and developmental disability going through going through the university and working on independence is a huge leap, not just for the student, but the families, and a lot of introspection happens, and we use these tools to help those families as well. And then it helps with transition as well. Transition is key, in and out. So key, we hired a transition coordinator whose entire job is to facilitate a smooth transition for families and students into the university. And really, we give these tools to the siblings of the student as well, so that they can set goals for themselves as well. So it's really like a holistic opportunity for everyone that we use this with, and it's also and you're going to get a lot of honesty from me. It's a good way to challenge communication issues, challenge frustration, and then really challenge a thought process that, like, there's that, or a rigid thought process in that way. Okay. So when we started using Charting the Life course, we began with just person-centered planning meetings. And our structure of person-centered planning, each student has 3 person-centered planning meetings each academic year. So one before the academic year starts, and then one each semester, to really kind of refine the goals and see if we're on track. Um, we also use these tools in our family workshops. So our families are required to, and I love saying that, required to go to, at a minimum, 2 family workshops a year, and we offer 3. Okay. And we use these tools there. We place the Charting a Lifestyle certain tools in admissions material, and then finally, at the end, big picture planning. But what I'm going to definitely focus on today is really the person-centered planning meetings, obviously, and the family workshops. That timeline for person-centered planning, one of the things that we do differently in our in at UMSL, or the university, in our program, is the family members are not always invited to every person-centered planning meeting. So 2 out of the 3, they got to be there, but the student has like a maintenance one, that we meet with the student advocates, yes, I like this, we're not moving forward, or changing goals based on what we see, how everybody's doing. And then we send a report to the families that this is what we talked about. Uh, we've received significant amount of feedback from families that like we're doing a lot of person-centered planning. Honestly, I think that's great. But we want to make sure that we continue promoting, and our key is promoting the student voice. In doing that, we parents only have to be there 2 out of the 3 during the academic year, and not every staff member is there uh, at every single one either. So that's kind of like our structure. And now I'm going to go into a little more detail about how like charting the life course works, and then how we use it. So just to remember, we have 4 outcome pillars in our program: live, learn, work, and play. Charting the Life course has all of these life domains, okay? And they're on here as well. And there's a website that I have at the end, and some tools and some I have some like virtual handouts for everybody at the end where you can see all of the things I'm talking about. What I want to give you is practical use how we use these. So these are the life domains that each tool focuses on. So we spent, and the best thing about charting the life course is you can modify it to meet the needs of your program or goals that you're using. So what we did is we took these life domains that you see here, ranging from daily life, healthy living, advocacy and engagement, all of those things, and we took like which life domains fit in our pillars: live, learn, work, and play. So we squeeze them into live, learn, work, and play. And that is really how we connect all of these life domains to the tools that we use with the families and the students. It's very structured to the extent that each tool is guiding, so in fairly easy to use so that you can talk about them in a way that meets everybody's learning needs, and is understood for all, ranging from siblings to grandparents to school teachers, to everybody, really, like what do we want and what we want to do. The whole thought process of charting the life course, they really talk about what is a good life and what do I want and how do I get to a good life? What is my goals? What are my supports? And who is supporting me? So it really kind of all sums up into how do I get to that good life? Good life. What do I want? And what do I not want to happen? So it's really, really good language to use. And we refer back in family meetings and with students, uh, what like using the language of the person-centered planning meetings throughout the academic year. Something that we also use person-centered planning for in our academic area is meeting the working with the instructors and faculty about what the students' goals are. I love meeting with faculty members and talking about a student's work and academic goal. It makes everybody more invested in that student's growth in that course, whether that course is modified or not modified, and really helps everybody connect and get on the same page. The way we do that, person-centered planning. And it's really easy, in our 13 years of experience this, it's really easy to get very lazy with person-centered planning. Okay. Uh, a structure using charting the life course helps us not do that. Okay. And we train on this yearly with our staff, like yearly, like whether we have new staff or not. Um, Here, and this is another thing I want to talk about, connecting back to the community and understanding who you are, um, how you connect to the community and how the community connects to you. So, and it really puts the person as this infographic talks about, in context of like within who they are in their family and who they are in the community. And it really gives that bigger support picture. Sometimes it's really hard to see what you have until you map it out. Okay. And mapping this out has been really using these tools to map it out has been great. We're going to talk a lot as we get closer to something called the integrated support star. Uh, and that is basically the grand finale of what we want students to see uh, of like, we're launching you, you are the star. How do we connect you to everything you need? Because you're going to need more than just our staff, and you're going to need more than just your family. And it really helps the family see it's not just us. Okay. And sometimes the families are like, we know it's not just us, but we didn't know we had all of these things available to us. And that's something that's really neat as well. So I wanted to kind of give you an overview of like those domains, and you'll see them in more detail in a second. So let's go step by step how we use each one in the order of what we use them, and you can kind of see what we do throughout the academic year. So when a student first comes to um, or first gets admitted in our program, we have our first person-centered planning meeting, and it's usually July or the beginning of August before school starts. And in that meeting, we use the life trajectory planning tool. Okay. Sometimes you'll see it with an arrow going up to the vision of what I want. But this really, we want to fill in these boxes with the families in a low stress environment because a lot is happening in your first semester and in that first transition. And there's a lot of stress happening for the family and the student in that transition. And we want to make it as easy and manageable as possible. So the way we use this tool is let's just talk about what the first semester looks like. Okay. Let's talk about what you want, that good life in the first semester. And what this tool allows us to do is fill in past experiences that will get you there or might hinder you, and things in the future, like what you want to do to help you get you there, and what you things that you would avoid to things that you could keep you from getting there that would get you to that not good life in that red box. Um, what is what we do often over the last couple of years is we actually give this tool separately to the student and the family and ask them to fill it out to the best of their ability separately. Because it really gives a good idea of where we're at that first semester in terms of stress, in terms of goals, in terms of just, do we just want to make it through living on campus for the first time without too many roommate conflicts, or we are we do not care how anything goes. Like it's like variations on a theme there. And this one really helps us uh, clarify that in that first semester. It also sets the groundwork for the next tool that we use to really set the actual goals that we're going to be using. So this first one here is really like the transition person-centered planning meeting. It's usually 1 hour, hour and a half at most. It has a team of two, and you will have the same team the entire academic year, staff members working with you on your person-centered plan. And because this meeting also, like, parents are so stressed, and I do not blame them. Uh, they have a lot of questions about like everything about the program at once and things that they're stressed out about. Having this there to like low stress, let's set some achievable markers of what we want the first semester to look like, and we move through it. So it's something that's very important to get through. Doing it separately really helps expand what is going to like the dynamic between the student and the family. And once again, I think it's really awesome to see when a student and a family may not be on the same page, uh, or there might be something different. And really negotiating that is part of that growth, and it's really good for us to see because we grow as this process moves forward as well. Okay. So as after this meeting, which is obviously July, August, we move on to let's talk about goals. Okay. So this is where we use the Life Vision tool. The Life Vision tool, if you takes those domains, okay, and then we with the family and the student, so this is within the first semester, we've done about so each semester is obviously like around 16 weeks. This is around week 10. Okay. We try to fit these in. Is it always perfect? Absolutely not. But our goal is to really complete these around week 10 for our first year students. And we set like what does the vision or the goal look like in each one of these, right? And these are the questions on here that come with it. You can modify this, to an extent to like really meet your program's needs, but it really does help like what do you want to do in your adult life as a job, right? So what's my employment goal? Where do you want to live? And like do you want to live with alone with somebody? Like what's your independent living goal? So remember, we smushed these. I like using that term because that's what my staff says. Smush these into our four pillars, and then through that, we do this. We put goals in all of these areas. Okay. Here's the best part, team. Okay. The best part is we got to put priorities down. All right. What we have noticed over the last, uh, like 13 years as a program is students are going to be growing in different areas all the time. So one student might be growing significantly in um, independent living, and another student might be doing awesome in employment. And then, like next semester, that might just flip, right? We might need more support in another area. Also, parents' expectations and priorities are also very, very important to understand where the parent wants the student to go, as the parent and the student on the same page with this, and like thinking through what the student's priorities are. Like, I really want to work on independent living goals, like so healthy eating, or not getting into arguments about the temperature in the dorm room, stuff like that. And then seeing if the parent has the same or the family member has the same goal is really, really awesome. And through this tool here, we're able to set those goals. This one, okay, is uh, this person-centered planning meeting is all about student voice. So we do a healthy amount of prep with the student in their first year experience course and with their coaches in order to get them ready for like goal setting, smart goals, looking in the future, and then describing what they need and what they want and using their voice to talk about priorities. So we do a little prep on this to make the meeting not only a little more efficient, but also like practice like promoting who you are and what you want in that self-determined process. So I know we all have been there. I mean, like I'm there with my children where it's like, hey, John, what do you want to do with your life? Immediately look at mom. Like, that's totally awesome, but I really want to hear what John wants to do with his life. And then how we can get him there. Because that is that is kind of like the whole point of going to college is gaining that independence, and independence means something, or like independent living or employment can mean something different to me than it is in my family to somebody else in their family. And really setting those goals and what that student wants is important. and also takes us away from the IEP world of like percentages where it's like, look, here's the thing. We're going to set community living or what we call the independent living pillar uh, uh, as priority one. It might actually like we're okay being flexible on this. It's just a good guidebook that way. Um, my favorite tool out of the whole thing, which I keep referring back to, is the integrated support star. Um, this is the uh, not only the grand finale of the first year, okay, but it really starts. It's one that we use over and over again uh, with families in the second year, or with students and their families in the second year, because this one changes a lot and involves a lot of reflection, okay? We heavily believe that everybody, whether you have a disability or not, lives a supported life. So I cannot function whatsoever at work without my staff members helping me uh, or my family getting my life on track. Like we all need support in our life. And going through exercises repeatedly to understand what supports are available, uh, what sports you have, and what we don't need is extremely important. And seeing this one change is really impactful because these boxes move. So, for example, okay, and like I said, this is a very stressful one because uh, it's it makes families reflect at times on a reality that they're not going to be there forever, or there might be some things that they're not going to be able to get. So this is also a reality person-centered planning meeting that like, how do we work through this and really guide the families? So uh, yeah, I love this one. So how we use this is there's these uh, sections here, and students start out really talking about their personal strengths. And I have examples of this as well that I'll show everybody. Personal strengths and what they're good at and what they're growing in, right? So like this is like I really am good at coding, or I am good at um, writing PowerPoints, or I'm good at. So they talk through that academic strengths, independent living strengths, all of those things guided uh, within the person-centered planning meeting. And then we talk about relationships. Who is there to support the student? So if anybody's ever gone through like circle of support planning and that process before, okay, this is this is the only reference, the reason why I use that reference is students immediately like start firing off mom, dad, grandma, grandpa. Okay. That's great. But this one really is like pulling out like, okay, but like, let's talk about what friends do for you, right? Let's talk about what other community members like at church or at this club or activity you go to, how do they support you in those areas, like in your success? How are they there for you? So this is a little more difficult in the extent of you like not everybody, including families and traditional UMSL students, can it's hard to really think about like, man, I do have a lot of people out there for me. Uh, let's put it on paper, and it's really impactful to see. Over on the other side, that technology area is really like, how do you use technology to support your life, right? So like I would be nowhere, and this everybody here um uh on this meeting probably would like my cell phone, okay? Right, because it has your agenda, your contacts, your like it has a map. Like so it's like your utility belt of your life is like your cell phone. But then we break it out into what other things do you use? So an example, like a lot of people have like smart speakers at home. One is currently right next to me, which is why I'm not using its name. And it's like we use these things to notify us of timers or notify us of our calendar or translate something for us. So how do we use technology? You know, it's awesome too. I'm going to use a buzzword now. We're starting to see students talk more about like how we use AI to be successful in courses, like AI summarizing things so that everybody can understand it in a better way. AI using plain language for the student. So like technology is great, and seeing that on that sheet is awesome. Community-based and eligibility specific, those are things that like, what are you qualified for as an individual with a disability, and are we going to move forward with those things? So these things range from vocational rehab to different types of waivers, scholarships, stuff like that. Like, how are you going to use these at the university? And then as we kind of progress through person-centered planning and beyond. So, like, as you leave the university, what things are you eligible for that you want to keep using? Do you know how to use it? Who is supporting you to use that? And then community-based what organizations are there for you, right? So is it Easter Seals or St. Louis Arc for us? Like what organizations in the region or in the country that are there to support you to kind of help move you forward? That is how we use this tool. And like I said before, it's stressful because it really makes you think. Because it's like an exercise in like pulling things out. But once you get used to it, and after that first time we use that with families, it gets a lot easier. And then we start crossing things out or modifying it. Like, I gained this strength. I learned this at school, so I no longer need that. And that's what's going on. So we build up to that support star, and we continue using it, and we reflect back the support star to the goals, right? So how does the support star support our goal? So we have a student that had a goal of, the reason why I bring up dog grooming is because all the time is because we had a student that had a very specific thing of dog grooming. And like what's straight, so we like write the person-centered planning, like how do we use the support star to figure out what supports you have to get your goal of getting a certificate in dog grooming. So those things need to reflect each other like a mirror. Okay. If you're not connecting back to the goals, or goals, or the goals are not voice like lending their voice to this integrated support star, like it's just, you're just having another piece of paper where you're discussing what your relationships are. And uh, I think that, you know, you can't have enough of these written, but they all have to like really inform each other and how that works. So that's why I really like this one the best, because it really maps out and it shows everybody what it is. And I bet you're like probably like, where do you put all this stuff? Um, so we there's two areas that we put these in. The Each student has a person-centered planning folder in our system, and that's one of the things that students and families can access with the student's permission. That's really important. Uh, uh, that they can reflect back on and use at different meetings that they have. So students always have access to their goals and person-centered planning electronically. That's really important to us that it's accessible, because it really is like everybody's got to be on the same page. That's one. We also use an app called Equip, where we load all these things into the Equip, and it's an app on their phone that really helps continuously inform them of like, okay, we're really focusing on this work goal this semester. How do we do that? And it also helps coaches and staff have easy access to the person-centered planning documents in order for us to all be on the same page and make sure we're not guiding the student to something they don't want. Or if the student does want that, we need to amend the person-centered planning documents, which is like not a problem. So there's like really two locations that are easily accessible with the student permission. Because remember, student voice, student driven, student self-determination is the key here with all these things. And then you're like, okay, it cannot always be that like smooth. It is not. Okay. Uh, Person-centered planning is not always smooth. And I'm here for that. I really enjoy the times where we're working through like everybody's roles and responsibilities, and parents' stress and frustration, and helping everybody grow and getting that feedback from parents. And what we do there is map relationships. Okay. So one of the most important things in family workshops for us, as we say this, is we want families to move from caretaker to advisor. Okay. So we have an 8-hour workshop where we go over this with families, new families every August. And it is, and it's such a, and we role play, we go through data and we talk about caretaker to advisor. And what I like telling families is, you know, my my parents, I still call them as advisors. That's never not going to happen. Like I still call my dad when I feel like I screwed something up or if I need advice on something. Do I have to take his advice? Absolutely not. I hopefully he's probably going to watch this. But but for me, it's good to get that, like, a lot of people call it like a kitchen cabinet, right? Your people who advise you. And we want parents to move from like, we're doing this for you to like, how do we work with you to get this done? Okay. And mapping relationships when things get hard is really this document really helps us out. And it really helps us out because it helps clarify who's doing what. So like, and there are times we edit some of these, okay? But like for example, uh like who ensures material financial needs are met? Who does this now? And then we ask the student, like, do you want to do like who do you want this to do this in the future? Sometimes there's like, I still want my mom to do that. And then or my dad to do that, or my uncle to help me. That's great. Then we reflect to the uncle, is this something you want to continue doing? What are the next steps and goals to help you get there? This document is not used in every person-centered planning meeting, but it is used in some of our classes to inform person-centered planning, or when we're having a little bit of a conflict and need to really tease some things out, especially in terms of um, uh, like life decision discussions. Uh, like we really want to make sure the student and the family and their support circle uh, really understands like whose role, who does the student believe is in charge of this, and who does the student want to be in charge as we move forward. So that's something really, really important. Uh, and then on the flip side of that, the reciprocal role is uh, really we share the growth of the student because it prepare the student transition out. Who uh, is the student caring for? Who's the student? What are the student? Who's the student helping out? Like who is doing like who is the student helping with finances? Who's the student like what are you doing in your future in these areas? And it really helps reciprocate back on the student what their goals are and what they can do. So I think that's really, really important that way, um, to help the student rethink that. Here are some examples of working through this. Okay. So, like an example is and we do this a lot, and I just cannot see that, but there's better examples I can kind of send people later. But like students usually kind of write these out or we type them out for them in the meeting, variations on a theme, and then we upload them. But really filling these out, this is important to really make sure the student is doing it and the student's voice is there. That's what I wanted to show you is like, this is what we talk through uh, as a group in the first time. And like they get way more detailed as we move forward. Here is like that life trajectory with the arrow example. Um, one of my favorite things with this is, and you're like, John, are you a psychopath about this? Sometimes I might be. Is we use this to onboard new employees. Okay. Where do you see your career going? Where do you see your supportive students? Like, how do you see you fit in here? What do you not want to happen while you're here? This is extremely helpful, builds rapport between supervisor and staff member, really helps the staff clarify, like, my goal is this, and what they don't want. Funny story about this one over here, the one that says Florida at the end. That student does actually now live in Florida. So, um, so that's kind of like, how did we get there and what does that look like? It really helps kind of move that on. We also use this in uh, like vision, like what is our vision for the year with the staff is this one too. We use like as a team, what do we want to happen? What do we not want to happen? And each one of us do this during like professional development days and stuff like that. We do it with our interns. We have about 14 social work interns from universities across the area, and we work on this with them to get an idea what they want out of their internship. And I think it's great. And it's actually hysterical to see like nobody's ever asked me what I want. Everybody just tells me what I'm supposed to do. And like that is what college students uh, deal with these days. Literally, I did this to a group of 30 resident advisors in housing last year, and like some of them had a hard time of like, wow, this is like I've always just like like a train left the track. I'm always just moving forward. I never really reflect on stuff, and this really helps them do it in a very easy approach and way to do it that way. Okay, back to my favorite thing. This is what we use to work through our one of our goals of like all these different pathways for the Succeed program. This document here turned into Succeed Plus. So, and the link program. So like this literally, we used this uh, a couple of years ago and it informed our grant and now we have Succeed Plus and the Link program to really like figure out like how we do what we're doing. And it's been awesome to see and do. And I just wanted to show you like how this can actually impact you, not only students, but your organization thinking through things in a more concrete way. And there's actually an outcome to it. And I think that's um, something awesome. Okay, speaking on outcomes, there is um, something that stresses me out more than anything, which is families and students going back, like you spend all this money on college and all this work, and then going back to the same thing. Okay, so we do extensive transition meetings with families and students leaving the program. And one of the things we started doing last year in our partnership with UMKC and St. Louis ARC is create, out of using the Charting LifeCourse tools, the Transition Toolkit. This is a physical and electronic copy for the students and their families to take with them. And we started this now. We've already started these meetings for students exiting the program uh, where we fill out documents about what that transition is going to look like and guide them through that process of like where they're going to live, what they're going to do, who's supporting them. And there's support stars in each one of those areas: live, learn, work, and play. So we wanted to help the student and their family continue to use these tools after person-centered planning is gone. So what we are in fact doing is giving a document or a book to uh, students and their families to continue person-centered planning at the family level. And we just started doing this. So this is like you're like the third group I've talked to about this. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback about the ease of use. We have a online version that has its own little reader, so the student so it meets the accessibility needs of the student and their families. Um, and really kind of thinking through this, uh, it it helps, and there's like notes areas on there. It helps the family look at what's important and what they've learned while in our program. So like really the support start kind of how are you using all these things? What's the next steps? And this is whether they are going to continue to live in the St. Louis area or they're going to be in um, the like go back home. We have students all across the country that use this and hand it to maybe their VR representative, like, these are my goals, this is what I've learned, and this is what I do. And then we have like videos on eligibility based resources within the St. Louis area and beyond uh, to really connect students and families. This is what's out here. These are other groups and organizations that have your back, and this is how we do this for everyone. So this is really something that is exciting, not only for the student and the family, but really um, I'll have hopefully more data on feedback on this as we move forward. Okay, next steps. Okay, this is where we're taking it, and not only person-centered planning, but charting the life course. So we talked about using this in person-centered planning and family meetings. We are building out an extensive summer bridge. Well, I say summer bridge, but it's going to be an entire academic bridge program to transition students that who are admitted to our program a year early, and we're going to take them through an entire year of transition. And it's going to be using the transition toolkit and charting life course. We're going to be doing mini person-centered planning meetings with these students to really, and their families, to get everybody ready to go. Because we consistently have a wait list, and what we see on this wait list is we don't want students to like lose momentum, right? So we bring them back to campus. We do a summer camp with them. We've done a summer bridge with them, and we realize that um, those students are consistently the ones that uh, have an easier transition in. So that's what um, we want to really develop an entire academic bridge program that models college bridge programs and academies that are already in existence. Like, let's not recreate the the process here. Let's integrate and really kind of figure out how we can be part of those bridge programs. We're also going to start using it not only in the classroom, but with faculty members. That's what I mean by that. So, like, how can we onboard faculty members, new faculty members through the university into this thought process and really help them support our students and programs? A key to IPSI programs working is the supportive faculty, and anything that we can do as a program to do that is really helpful. And then we're going to be doing campus trainings on this, and we work with employers uh, with the Charting the Life course tools as well. So like here's the student, we give the student goals to employers that support our students and really kind of work through what they want and what they don't want, and really best practices. So it's really just like person-centered planning is a long-term process that we don't want to end when they leave us. We want to we want to because these tools are so useful and manageable for anybody. We want to help employers and faculty gain the what they need to not just support our students, but support themselves and them as well. One of the things that in ambassador trading we do at times is do this with your family, which is an hysterical thing to do when you're like, let's do support star with our family. But it really is impactful to see, like, it's not just us. Sometimes you're like, I'm so alone in this process, but putting that all together uh, helps you have empathy during that process with the students as well. So I think that's something that's really, really cool there. My friends at LifeCourse Nexus wanted me to really talk about things that they can provide your team and everybody in terms of professional development. They can support putting these tools in your organization's daily operations, and then really kind of help with curriculum design around this. I can like they really have helped modify, guide us. They've been really awesome in involving in this, and they have a lot of resources on their website, and it's down at the corner of their lifecoursenexus.com. Resources on using these tools, what it is, and a lot more things that I have clearly not gotten to in our time together, but really reaching reaching out to them and really thinking like if we're going to use this, how is the best way to doing that? And they can really help you do that. They also, oh, here's a QR code to access resources, and uh, um, this is obviously being recorded, but lifecoursenexus.com is really the way, and there's different kind of guides to use each one of these tools. So somebody might use the star different than I use it. That's cool. I'm not offended. Uh, and and or a better way than we use it. And I think that's great too. And the best way to talk about those things is at that the showcase, which is really their resource um, uh, um, conference about charting the life course, and it brings together practitioners, agencies, and everybody to really talk about how these things are being used and how we can improve them. And then you can we're going to be there presenting, hopefully, in Kansas City. It's May 5th through the 6th, and it's a great way to really think through this. They also have a newsletter that comes out that you can sign up for. That's really awesome. So there's a lot of cool things going on in this area that shows how to use these tools and innovate around them. Okay, I have actually gotten close to not going over for the first time in my life. So I'm here to answer any questions anybody has, concerns, or anything I wasn't clear on.
Well, you guys asked questions for Jonathan. I'm just going to launch a poll here. We'd appreciate it if you take the time to fill it out. And then, yeah, please feel free to put questions in the chat or just ask them out to the whole group. Thank you.
And I once again apologize for the video link problem that I had. I don't know. I don't know. You get like you figured out like, oh man, I know how to use technology, and then you clearly don't. Like that's what happened to me. So, but I also want to thank our partners at UMKC for the use of these tools. They've been really awesome. So,
Any questions about charting the life course to Jonathan or just about what is happening at UMSL? Anything at all?
how to use like different things, problems we've had. This is awesome. one of the things that okay, I'll ask my own question. How often, John, do you feel you need to train on these? So as I said previously, we do like a professional development on these once a year in the summer with this, but we also spend a lot of time in our staff meeting talking through this could have gone better. Like, so we're constantly like a cycle of improvement of like, I did not use this correctly, or this was absolutely miscommunicated, or this is not meeting the needs of our student population. We need to get rid of it. One of the things too that has come up is how do we use this in like the interview process for our families? I think that could be helpful too, because really we view it as a partnership tool, and that's it. Okay, yes, getting lazy. Yes. Okay, that's one of the things that um and the reason why I say that is it's very easy to get into a rhythm where you stop caring about the actual process. Where you're like, we just got to get it done, schedule a 45-minute meeting, fill out the paperwork, and never refer back to it. Right? Because there are a lot of requirements on person-centered planning in our grant and in CTP. So it's like we just got to get this done, let's do it. Okay. And another thing lazy too is like you do not record the information correctly or what the student is actually saying in the meeting. And that is where I felt at times we were going because we were stressed out, didn't have enough staff. It was overwhelming. Uh, the structure, um, the structure that we implement with charting the life course has prevented us from getting lazy because we have to go through and like it's like a system of holding each other accountable, like the student, the family, us, and it's a reciprocal process that can't move forward. And that's when we do it one way. Okay, the cost for institutions, one of the cool things is you can just go on the website and just download these things for free. Okay. Where I think it is important though is uh, getting some type of training for it, okay? Or working with somebody that has been trained in this to help you through it. There is some cost to training and cost to going to the conference, um, which I do recommend. And our training was funded through a grant. So if there's like grant funds to do that, I think that's awesome. We actually funded, like I said, like an entire uh, um, school district to go through this training. And what's important, I think, is you can just download them and like work through it. But if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me or somebody on that, and that's something to do it. And I think that's what's great about it is you can just use it. Great question. Yeah, a refresher is always great. Like, it is, it's just all about like understanding the importance of it is key. And like it's also extremely back to that lazy thing, extremely easy for us as a practitioner of this to like completely like ignoring this like just having the family in there and just like not listening to student voice. Okay. And here's the thing, the family has the best intentions ever, right? So it's not like that's a bad thing. But the goal is to really build up everybody in the meeting, and it is a person-centered planning meeting. So we did this thing before where it's like, we're going to set rules, okay? Or we're going to talk through that. And that's just like puts everybody in a box, and we don't want to do that. So, like, what we really want to do is make sure that families have a role, students have a voice, and we come together because everybody needs support, and I think that's important. Um, yeah, yeah. So printing and yeah, you can just print them out. Yeah, it's we. I think it's a good way of starting with it. Yeah. Anything else? Anything I was unclear on? I hope everybody got the understanding of like how we move through the person setting. Like that is not a requirement that like you can use these in any way you want, like, but like that's how we decided to use them. So, okay, student problem, that's great. Okay. How do you talk about the tools to help student problem? Okay, so an example, we actually use this with like graduate students and students in our program. So if a student is really hitting like a big problem in terms of like a relationship or with their family member, a communication problem or a work problem, we pull these things out to help clarify what the actual issue is. So is this a you don't like what you're doing situation, or is this like a systemic thing that you are encountering, like that we need to intervene in? So it's really helps bring that student voice into it without us making any assumptions on what the student needs. Like that is the last thing we want to do. There are times in most of the student problems come up in academic stuff too. Like I am like or a problem with the instructor, and we really this has really helped us understand like I just like do I not like the assignment, or is the instructor not being as accommodating as we need? And that helps us there. The Equip app is an app that we uh, is designed specifically for programs like Succeed for students with intellectual disability. And there's a wide variety of features in it, ranging from um, like routines, calendars, a mood tracker, which is awesome. It is my favorite thing. I'm having a bad day, and then it notifies us that they're having a bad day, but it gives them options that they came up with. That's like, I've had a bad day. What are your tools that you use? Okay. So that's really helped. And there's a whole student document and person-centered planning area that we upload that stuff into. So it's an easy resource from that. So it came and um, it was designed by uh, um, a family, I believe a family member uh, who is really into that stuff, and it really is taken off. So there's several programs that use it. I think we're the second largest program that uses it by volume. But that's where we put in uh, the documents. And like when I also, back to Mary's question about like problem solving, okay? Like we sometimes it's like so we had a family member that for a degree student that was like putting fairly unrealistic expectations on the student, and but I totally got where that family member was coming from. So like I actually worked one-on-one with the family member, and together we filled out that trajectory, and then I had the student fill it out separately. And then like I talked with the family member of like, look, this student has not left their room, and you're requiring them to like leave their room 6 times a week, like to go to events 6 times a week. It's just not gonna, we got to take a different step here. Like they're doing good what we got them doing, and that's really been helpful. And like, and it really came down to that red box that's like, that bad life. Like, I don't want my students to be isolated, and they weren't seeing that. And it's like, look, they're not isolated. They were at that, they were at their geology club meeting, and they're doing great. And like, it helped really bring that out. So,
Can I just quickly add something? Sorry, I know we're
sure.
over time. So I just want to thank Mary and Katie for hosting this. So I'm in Wyoming, starting our program here. And so I have a colleague going through the training. We're actually using this in our Echo for Families network this
Awesome.
semester. And so we're
Awesome.
walking through the different forms. And then I'm starting the ambassador training in April, and we're going to showcase. And so, but it was just nice to kind of see like the IPSY piece of it and kind of pull that into it. So
I loved the ambassador training. Um, I did it during COVID, which was like a huge bummer, but like it was so fun, and like so good to see that. So it was good. So I'm glad you guys are doing it.
Yeah, thanks.
Also, I'm really excited that you're starting a program in Wyoming. That's really exciting to me.
Me too. A cohort of about 6 in the fall. So
Oh, so wonderful.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. We will send a follow-up email with resources Jonathan mentioned. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at myhec.uofm.edu, and we'll be happy to connect with you at any time. Have a great evening, all. See ya.